Good afternoon, everybody. We are sitting here looking at my African nightcrawler bin, and this bin is on my dining room floor right next to a space heater that I keep in this room. This room is an addition to the house, and it's not part of the house foundation. It's up on footers, so the floor is always really cold in here, and the room is really cold, and I have Cornish Rex cats that just love sucking up heat. Clang, say hi. Clang. You don't want to say hi. But since African nightcrawlers want heat, this floor it's probably 85 degrees at least. I thought, what better spot for them than here right next to the bin, or next to the heater, I'm sorry. So I got these on September 23rd, so these African nightcrawlers have been with me 1 pound for 41 days now. And in this bin, I'm sticking pretty hard and true to my no bedding or no cardboard other than the initial setup approach. With the flash off, it's too dark. With the flash on, it's too bright. Okay, so you can see them here stretched out. Let me look at how long this worm is. These guys are beautiful, and this bin is pretty much done. There's, other than baby worms and cocoons and food that's way at the bottom, they wiped out everything so fast, and I had started it heavy with paper. Once I made sure that they were comfortable and content, I stopped adding paper and just started adding food scraps. And it's always been my approach that in the wild, worms aren't eating cardboard. They're eating decaying matter, leaves, grass, dead grasses, decaying vegetables, pieces of plants that they find, whatever it is. They will be in cardboard if a human throws it down, corrugated cardboard, because of the starch glue that holds the layers together. That starch between the cardboard is food for them, but it's not their preferred source. And once they do make castings outside, they live in them while they continue to eat. They don't seek out cardboard to live in. So, from a common sense nutritional analysis, you would say, well, if I feed my worms a bunch of cardboard, or if I feed them a bunch of mangoes and avocados and pumpkins and whatever else, what's the quality difference in the castings? And I can't help but to say, there's no nutrition in cardboard. It's glue, which will be genetically modified corn that they use to make the glue, of course, which I'm not a fan of. So I have learned that letting them live in their castings once they make it, and just adding food, is all that's necessary. I don't continue to add paper or more cardboard once they're settled in. And these guys have such a cool metallic hue. Now these should be called Indian blue worms, but I guess they're not. And because of their origin, they're from Africa, and they are their version of nightcrawlers. So they're African nightcrawlers. And I'm just looking. I found one teeny piece of pumpkin on the bottom over there. And it looks like they may have wiped out everything in here, and that after 41 days of existence, this bin may be ready to fully harvest. See, there's a little piece of pumpkin here, and all the worms are around it. And again, you can see these little guys. There were no young worms when I got the 1 pound back on September 24th. Well, I received them on the 23rd. There were no young ones and there were no cocoons. I went through it pretty carefully when I unboxed them, and there is an unboxing on my channel. So, yep, looks like they have completely utilized everything I put in here, other than the recent pumpkin edition from the Halloween time pumpkin, and all the young worms are from cocoons that they have laid. So that tells you that from September 23rd, which is 41 days ago, they arrived, they mated, they laid eggs. Well, they laid eggs inside cocoons, and those cocoons hatched, and those worms grew big enough to be visible and eating. So that's amazing, 41 days. And I contribute it to getting healthy worms, and I contribute it to maintaining the bin properly. And not saying those who add cardboard at every feeding are wrong, but for me, it just doesn't seem natural, so I don't do it. I try to follow Mother Nature, what would happen in the wild, and that's not what worms would be driven to. Like I said, unless cardboard was there and there was nothing else, they would eat the glue from between the layers, and they would even eat the cardboard once it broke down, but they would much prefer vegetables or fruit or decaying leaves. So since we have the option indoors of feeding either cardboard or fruit and vegetables, or a combination of both, why give them any cardboard? Their castings is their bedding. People use the word bedding, which I do understand for an initial bin setup, but after that, their bedding is what they make. They will eat their castings repeatedly if they need to. But as long as there's food, this pumpkin was not pre-frozen, so although it's a little bit soft, it's not really mushy. And I had, as always, dead-headed plants, and I put them in here, and they strip everything off down to nothing. I mean, you can see the little, oh, maybe you could see them. Almost looks like this was starting to grow roots on it from being in there. I believe that was from the butterfly bush. So these worms have officially wiped out everything but the recent piece of pumpkin. Even the dead-headed plants that I put in here, they are stripped clean. There's no anything on it for them. So I'm going to go ahead and take out most of these castings and start fresh. No reason to keep adding food to this when it's ready to be harvested. I'm very pleased with these worms. I feel something mushy down here. It's either a worm. Oh, it's another piece of plant. This was a, let's see. These are just stems, of course. This was a broad-leafed purslane plant. I have a lot of purslane that grows in my yard, which is wonderful because if I ever get a bee sting, this immediately takes out any pain or swelling or itching. But I had just thrown a couple of root balls in here because I know the young worms love living in the roots, as you can see right there. And the roots will stay alive as long as the bin is moist. And if it's covered, the leaves aren't going to produce, but the roots will stay alive. And that's what those babies want. Another cocoon there on my finger. More stems, but they really strip the stems. See, here's another piece of plant, and all the worms are gathered around the roots. They love roots. I haven't researched why. There has to be something in it for them. Whenever I have roots, I mean, the pumpkin food was down here, and while there were worms around it, there's just as many worms gathered around this root ball, and if this were bigger, they would be in this root ball than there is around the food. So it's nice and damp. It's not overly wet. It's really, really, really warm. I'm going to say it's at least 90 degrees because it's picking up the floor heat being right against this heater here. And for African night crawlers, that is like heaven for them. A little more piece of plant. Must have broke off that purslane plant. So that's it, folks. I would say I'm going to say there's not much to see, and that's a good thing. They stripped clean all the dead heads, the flowers. They have eaten all the initial startup bedding. They've eaten all the food but a tiny piece of cardboard, and they're doing really, really well. They look healthy. The castings are ready. This bin is ready to be harvested after 41 days of being in existence. So things couldn't be doing any better, I guess. I don't think there's anything more I could ask for. I mean, from getting them to my door to having them breed, lay eggs, have the eggs hatch, the worms become big enough to be feeding actively and to be able to to harvest, I mean, a full bed of castings all in 41 days. I'd say that's as much as anyone could expect from a good, healthy bin. A little bit more pumpkin there. This is a hard piece of pumpkin. This is like the outer wall before it breaks down. They're not fussy. They're pretty ferocious as far as their eating ability. I think just maybe based on their size, because they are so long. I mean, there's some of these worms, when stretched out, exceed a foot in length. So, they just must be able to do a lot more. Take bigger bites, I don't know, penetrate more. I'm not sure exactly how it all works, but I find that they can rip through things that aren't as soft, and things don't need to be as decaying for these guys to utilize it. They're quite aggressive in their feeding ability. You can see how big they are. So now that I have a pretty heavy population of young worms in here throughout the bin, I will be able to tell if the new generation grows to be as big as the original worms I started with. I've heard from a couple of people that, they purchase worms like myself, from a seller, and that over one or more generations, their worms lost their size and ended up being shorter. I don't understand why that would happen, but I certainly believe them that it did happen. So what I'll probably do is take the young ones out of here and put them in an entirely new bin so I can make the comparison. Keep these adults, the original pound that I got in here, and then set up an identical tray with the babies that I'll pull out when I harvest the castings, and see how they grow. See if they grow to be the same size, and maybe I'll actually put out a measuring tape and measure some of the adults just so I can have something to compare to. Now, I don't know the age of the adults, and I'm sure that the person I bought them from didn't know the age of the adults either. But I mean, it can't take too long for them to reach full size, because I haven't had these. Again, I had them for 41 days, and if the babies are already an inch long, you know, that's after mom and dad made the eggs and then the hatch, and then they had to grow from there. So the reproduction is pretty rapid. This is definitely one that was born here, and yeah, this is absolutely not one of the ones that came with the first pound, and it already is getting big. So yeah, I hope I don't experience the problem of them losing their length. And if that happens, I'm going to do some research to find out what is it that causes that in captivity. All right, I've blabbed long enough. I'm very pleased. I'm very pleased that I have another bin that is completely finished in only 41 days, and that now I have some youngins to start my second African nightcrawler bin, so I can do that size analysis for additional generations. All right, folks, leave any questions or comments you have below, please. As always, give me a thumbs up if that's what you feel about this video. Make suggestions, ask questions, leave me any topics you'd like to see me cover. But other than that, definitely done in here. I will not be adding any food or any bedding or anything. They have little bits of pumpkin that they're going to finish up, and then I'm going to fully harvest this bin and start it fresh. And I'm sure when I do that, I'll make a video. All right, take care, everybody. Have a wonderful evening.